therapist Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and today I want to talk about how to rewire negative thinking. So I think we've all had moments where life feels like just this endless to-do list, right? Sometimes it's not even necessarily the big stuff that feels daunting, but it's really just the small daily tasks that pile up and kind of weigh us down. And after a long day at work, the thought of maybe taking the dog for a walk or making dinner or even folding laundry, that can just feel really exhausting as it all kind of adds up and piles on. But what if there was a way to approach these tasks that actually left us feeling a little lighter and maybe even grateful? So I want to talk a little bit about reframing tasks, going from having to do something and shifting that to getting to do something. So let's talk about the psychology behind reframing. Reframing is a cognitive tool that's rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy. At its core, CBT is about changing the way we think to improve how we feel and behave. So reframing specifically involves taking a situation or thought and essentially looking at it from a new angle. So when we think of tasks as something we have to do, it feels really forced and burdensome, right? It feels like an obligation. On the other hand, reframing these tasks as things that we get to do, it sort of brings in this element of choice and control and even gratitude. And so why does this make such a difference? Well, studies show that having a sense of autonomy, that feeling that we have some control over our lives, really impacts our mental health. And when we feel like we're choosing our actions rather than being forced into them, it reduces stress and really boosts our overall well-being. So simply switching from have to get to can start to shift our mindset, and it gives us back a bit of control and reduces that feeling of obligation. The words we use can really significantly influence our feelings and behavior. And researchers have found that the language we use both internally and out loud when we speak can really shape our perceptions and emotional responses. So think about it. If you say, I have to take my dog for a walk, it sounds like something I need to just check off my list, something standing between me and my couch, right? But when I say I get to take my dog for a walk, then it suddenly feels like a chance to do something enjoyable. I remember that I get to be in the fresh air and sunshine, maybe soak up some vitamin D, enjoy a little movement and exercise, and watch my dog get excited at the prospect of going for a walk, right? So this really small shift can make a big difference in how I approach the task. And it's not just about tricking our brains, it's about really creating a sense of gratitude. And gratitude has been shown to improve our moods, enhance relationships, and reduce stress and anxiety. By focusing on what we get to do, we're more likely to approach life with a sense of appreciation as opposed to resentment. So I want to share with you some real life examples of going from obligation to opportunity and shifting from that have to mindset to reframing that with a get to mindset. So the first example, which I touched on earlier, is taking the dog for a walk. So the have to version is, I just finished a long day of work. I have to take my dog for a walk when all I want to do is really just sit on the couch. So when we reframe this into the get to version, we might say, I get to unwind by taking my dog for a walk, enjoying some fresh air, and taking a few minutes to myself before making dinner. The second example might be cooking dinner. So the have to version is, I have to cook dinner for the family. And you might think, this is going to take such a long time. I don't know what to make, go into that sort of negative spiral. Whereas when we shift to the get to version, we might say, I get to make a healthy meal for myself and my family and experiment with new recipes, right? You can kind of see the gratitude and appreciation in that shift. Third example would be laundry. So I have to do the laundry or I have to fold the laundry. Whereas when we reframe to the get to version, we might say, I get to have clean clothes for the week ahead and I get to spend a few minutes being productive. And finally, let's say you have a work project that you have to finish. The have to version would be, oh, I have to finish this report. Whereas when we shift and reframe to the get to version, we might say, I get to work on this challenging project that uses my skills and contributes to my professional growth. So again, you can see sort of the gratitude, the appreciation, the shift to more of the positive elements of that experience. So when we shift from that have to the get to, these mundane tasks really turn into opportunities to engage, reflect, work on our skill sets, or just simply enjoy small moments in life. And reframing can really help to reduce anxiety, because a big part of why we feel anxious or stressed is due to a lack of perceived control. And so when we have tasks where we feel like we have to do these things, they feel like demands, right? Whereas when we reframe those tasks and see them as things we get to do, they feel more like choices, almost like privileges. And there's that sense of gratitude. So this may seem like a really small distinction, and in reality it is, right? We're changing one word. But research on autonomy suggests that it really makes a pretty significant difference. When we feel forced into things, our stress and cortisol levels spike, which can contribute to long-term health issues if this sort of becomes our chronic state. And for a lot of us, we do have those never-ending to-do lists. We do sort of live in this chronically anxious state where there's this constant sense of urgency and like we have too much on our plate. We always have things to do. And so by reframing these tasks as choices, we sort of reduce that feeling of being trapped and eliminate that sense of urgency, which really helps to reduce that overall anxiety. In addition, reframing really helps us build resilience. So people who practice reframing, particularly around these small daily challenges, tend to handle those bigger stressors more effectively too, because they've trained themselves to find that silver lining or find the meaning in their tasks, which really buffers them from feeling overwhelmed. And, I've mentioned gratitude, and gratitude has become something of a buzzword recently, but it really has scientific backing. Studies have shown that gratitude practices can really improve mood, reduce depressive symptoms, and even enhance physical health. And when we approach our day with that get to mindset, we're actively practicing gratitude. Instead of thinking, I have to go to the gym, we can reframe that as I get to move my body, release endorphins, and work on my health. And it's not about ignoring the fact that some tasks are tiring or difficult. It's just about acknowledging the good that comes with them. This shift can really create a more positive outlook over time. And people who regularly practice gratitude are often more optimistic and resilient. In the long term, this leads to better mental health and a higher sense of life satisfaction, because you're essentially training your brain to seek out the positive. When you are engaging in a gratitude practice, you're training your brain to look for the positive, whereas a lot of time with anxiety or depression or, other mental health struggles, our automatic, our default is to go to the negative, right? We don't even have to think about it. Our brain just automatically does it. And so when we practice gratitude, we are literally training our brain to shift toward the positive. So some tips for putting reframing into practice, I would say start small. Begin with 1 or 2 tasks each day and just consciously reframe them. Don't try to reframe everything all at once. And then just the more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Number 2, look for the silver lining. This is not toxic positivity, right? We're not trying to make everything into something positive. It's just about finding maybe one small benefit in each task. And whether it's fresh air or physical movement or a chance to learn something, just see if you can find some positive angle. 3 is focus on opportunity. So remind yourself of the broader opportunity that each task presents. So instead of just doing laundry, for example, remind yourself that you're creating a comfortable environment or taking care of yourself. Even doing laundry is an act of self-care and of respect toward yourself, which ultimately builds self-worth and builds self-esteem. And then 4 is to practice gratitude, like I mentioned. So consider adding a daily gratitude practice. At the end of each day, write down maybe 3 things that you are grateful to get to do that day. And this really helps reinforce that mindset over time. So just to wrap up, reframing is a skill. It's not a cure-all. This is a skill that you practice, that you learn, just like any other skill. And so it's important to note that reframing isn't suddenly going to make every task enjoyable or stress-free. There will still be things we don't want to do, and that's okay. That's just part of life. The goal is not to love every task, but it's to approach each one with a little less resentment and a little bit more openness. And reframing, it just gives us a tool to navigate life with a little more control and gratitude, which can ultimately improve our mental well-being. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I have to, and then fill in the blank, just take a moment to pause, right? Try to find a way to shift that language, and you might be surprised how powerful it can be. So instead of, I have to finish this task, think, I get to work on something meaningful, or I get to take a break afterwards. Small changes in language can lead to really big changes in mindset, and a more positive perspective on the daily grind can really make a world of difference in the long run. So I would love to know how you are reframing in your own life. What's something that you maybe have to do that you were able to reframe and you now get to do. So drop that in the comments. I would love to hear your own experiences, and I hope this was helpful. I will see y'all next week.